Nova Scotians could now face fines of up to $25,000 if they set foot in a forest, even if it's on their own private property.
3 men are facing smuggling-related charges after Quebec police intercepted 44 illegal immigrants in dangerous conditions at Quebec's southern border.
A leading Canadian civil rights group is set to intervene in a case which saw a town and its mayor fined for voting against using an LGBT activist group's Pride Month's declaration. Hello Canada, it's Thursday, August 7th, and this is the True North Daily Brief. I'm Isaac Lamoureux.
And I'm Geoff Knight.
We've got you covered with all the news you need to know. Let's discuss the top stories of the day and the True North exclusives you won't hear anywhere else. Nova Scotians have been ordered to stay out of their own forests or face fines of up to $25,000. Simply stepping into the woods, even on private land, is now banned by the provincial government, with similar penalties to breaching a fire ban. The announcement by Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston covered activities deemed not necessary, including hiking, camping, fishing, and using off-road vehicles during a dry spell with conditions that could spark wildfires. Houston announced Tuesday that a ban on stepping into the woods is now in effect across the whole province, along with other fire restrictions.
Effective 4 p.m. today, we're telling Nova Scotians, stay out of the woods. We are restricting travel and activities that really aren't necessary for most of us. Hiking, camping, fishing, and the use of vehicles in the woods are not permitted. Trail systems through woods are off limits. Camping is allowed, but only in official campgrounds.
According to Nova Scotia Forest Notes, about 75% of the province is covered in forest. Houston said, quote, "If you're a smoker, for God's sakes, be mindful of where you're butting your butt out. If you don't and you cause a fire, we will hold you accountable. If you have a home or cottage surrounded by a wooded area, we strongly encourage you to stay out of those woods, regardless of where they are. Please don't do anything that could unnecessarily put you, your family, or your neighbors at risk." The measures apply to both provincial crown land and private land. So, Geoff, is the situation in Nova Scotia bad enough to warrant this, and what are some civil liberties advocates saying about this online?
Yeah, Isaac, civil liberties advocates online argue this ban infringes on property rights. Critics highlight that fining up to $25,000 for entering private woods, covering so-called unnecessary activities like hiking or fishing, oversteps government authority, especially since the measure applies to crown and private land alike. Some advocates, echoing sentiments on social media platforms, contend that it mirrors authoritarian overreach, with some calling it draconian and questioning why private landowners can't manage their land, given no objective risk threshold is specified beyond Houston's plea. Others worry about the chilling effect on rural livelihoods, for example, fishing or off-roading, with advocates like those on X suggesting it prioritizes safety over individual freedoms, though they acknowledge the wildfire context. The lack of clear exemptions or appeal processes fuels debate, with some advocating for targeted bans rather than a blanket prohibition, which reflects a tension between public safety and personal liberty. 3 men are facing smuggling-related charges after police in southern Quebec intercepted a truck carrying 44 illegal migrants in dangerous conditions. At approximately 2:20 a.m. on Sunday, a cube van was intercepted near Stansted, Quebec. This action followed intelligence received by RCMP and Quebec police officers concerning a potential illegal border crossing involving a significant number of migrants. Inside, officers found dozens of people, including a woman and children who were visibly distressed. RCMP spokesperson Sergeant Charles Poirier said, quote, "There wasn't a lot of air for them to breathe. No one had any water, and with the kids and the tight space, they couldn't sit on the ground. They had to stand. Just horrific conditions, really, that they were basically left in. The majority of the passengers were Haitian nationals," Poirier said. The RCMP's East Border District Director, Miguel Beijing, described the circumstances the migrants were discovered in as, quote, "crammed into a cube truck without ventilation." Police said none of the migrants appeared to be in immediate medical danger. The CBSA identified the 3 accused as Agulkin Mersin, 25, Dogan Alakis, and Firat Yuksek, both 31. The 3 men are charged with inducing, aiding, or abetting foreign nationals to contravene the Immigration and Refugee Protection Act, and with assisting entry into Canada outside of a designated port of entry. So, Isaac, we've been seeing this for a long time in Canada. How common is it for migrants to cross illegally into Quebec from the southern border? Does it happen more in Quebec than other provinces?
Yeah, Jeff. Quebec has long been the top destination for irregular migrant crossings into Canada. According to the UN Refugee Agency, in the first 3 months of 2023, Quebec accounted for 64% of all asylum claims in Canada before new border restrictions under the Safe Third Country Agreement came into effect on March 25th. After that date, its share fell, but it still remained among the highest in the country. One of the primary reasons for that is geography. Quebec shares a long, easily crossable land border with several US states, and until March 2023, it was home to Roxham Road, Canada's busiest unofficial border crossing. Between 2017 and its closure, more than 100,000 people used Roxham Road to enter Canada illegally, with over 95% of those crossings occurring in Quebec during peak years. But even after Roxham Road's closure, recent numbers suggest activity is ramping up again. The St. Bernard de la Colle border crossing, the nearest legal port of entry, saw a 277% increase in asylum claims this summer compared to last year, according to CBSA data. And the RCMP has also confirmed a, quote, notable increase in illegal entries in southern Quebec, particularly in areas near Stansted, where the recent smuggling case you mentioned occurred. Parliamentary testimony from the House of Commons Immigration Committee also revealed that in 2022, the RCMP intercepted almost 40,000 irregular crossers, averaging 108 per day, with the vast majority occurring in Quebec, again near Roxham Road. And by contrast, crossings in other provinces like Manitoba and BC have numbers which are much lower, whereas Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Atlantic Canada and provinces in Atlantic Canada see virtually no illegal crossings simply because they primarily lack long borders with US access. So yes, Quebec remains by far the top destination for illegal immigration into Canada. And despite Ottawa's efforts to reduce these crossings, the trend appears to be picking back up. A Canadian civil liberties group is set to intervene in a judicial review of an Ontario Human Rights Tribunal decision, which led to a small town mayor having his bank account garnished and the municipality being fined. The fines followed the town voting against a Pride organization's proposal that the month of June was Pride Month. The Canadian Constitution Foundation, an independent nonprofit civil liberties group, has been permitted to intervene in the case, which saw Emo Ontario Mayor Harold McQuaker's bank account garnished for $5,000 after he publicly refused to pay a fine placed on him. The CCF will argue that the bar for limiting free expression in Canada is high, and that the tribunal did not consider the mayor's expression rights before fining him for his and the town's, quote, discriminatory refusal to adopt the exact verbiage of the LGBT activist group Borderland Pride. The Ontario Human Rights Tribunal decided in a November 2024 ruling that McQuaker and the municipality of Emo discriminated against Borderland Pride when it voted 3-2 to not accept the organization's proposed Pride Month proclamation in 2020. The proclamation would have declared that the town recognizes, quote, diversity of sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression, represents a positive contribution to society, and is a matter for our community to take pride in, show its support, and celebrate. The town had previously declared other Pride proclamations in the past, but during a council meeting in 2020, while debating a Pride flag going up and accepting the special interest group's pre-written declaration for the town to proclaim, McQuaker's comments were found to be discriminatory. He said, quote, there's no flag being flown on the other side of the coin. There's no flags being flown for the straight people. The adjudicator in the case, Karen Dawson, awarded Borderland Pride $15,000. $10,000 from the 1,200 taxpayers in the municipality, and $5,000 was eventually garnered out of McQuaker's bank account after he publicly refused to pay the fine. So, Jeff, what are some of the unique arguments the CCF are bringing to this ongoing appeal?
Yeah, Isaac, the Canadian Constitution Foundation is bringing several unique arguments to the judicial review of the Ontario Human Rights Tribunal's decision against Emo Mayor Harold McQuaker and the municipality, as outlined in their intervention. The CCF argues that the tribunal set an excessively low threshold for limiting free expression under Section 2B of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, asserting that McQuaker's comments, for example, noting the absence of flags for straight people, were protected speech, not actionable discrimination. They contend that the tribunal failed to properly balance the mayor's expressive rights against the alleged harm to Borderland Pride, particularly since the town had previously supported Pride proclamations, suggesting the issue was about specific verbiage rather than outright rejection. The CCF highlights the unprecedented nature of garnishing McQuaker's bank account for $5,000 and fining the municipality $10,000 for a 3-2 council vote, arguing this punitive action oversteps into personal financial punishment without adequate justification. They assert that the tribunal's ruling creates a chilling effect, where elected officials may self-censor to avoid personal liability, undermining democratic discourse. The CCF challenges the adjudicator's finding that McQuaker's remarks created a discriminatory environment, arguing that disagreement with a pre-written proclamation does not equate to violating human rights, especially given the lack of intent to harm. This intervention seeks to establish a precedent that protects elected officials' rights to express dissenting views, even on contentious social issues like Pride Month, without facing disproportionate financial penalties.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can stay on top of new episodes every weekday by subscribing to the Daily Brief on iTunes and Spotify. Also, while you're at it, make sure to hit us with a 5-star rating and please leave a review.